Watch this video before you place the check for the Robertson Opus. Hi there, I'll be a real estate agent coming close to 15 years. So today I'll be doing a review on the Robertson Opus, whether it's a hit or a miss. So where exactly is the Robertson Opus? The Robertson Opus is actually the en bloc Robertson Walk Fraser Place. So I'm going to show you a video to see whether does this place looks familiar to you. Looks familiar? Some of you may feel a bit bittersweet that this place is no longer available, and Fraser Property, who own this mall, has decided to redevelop this mall into the Robertson Opus. So some quick info regarding the Robertson Opus. The Robertson Opus will be a project of 348 residential units with 26 commercial units. So of the 348 residential units, it comprises 40 units of suites, 40 units of 1 bedrooms, 118 units of 2 bedrooms, 32 units of 2 bedroom plus study, 45 units of 3 bedroom plus flexi, 37 units of 3 bedroom dual flex, 27 units of 3 bedroom premium, and 9 units of 4 bedroom premium. The leasehold, it will be a 909 years leasehold starting from 1st of July 1841. Location would be at District 09, Orchard River Valley Place. TOP is expected at the second quarter of 2030. Developer will be Riverside Property Private Limited, which is a joint venture between Fraser Property and CKC. Now over the last weekend, more than 3,000 people has visited the show fair, and developer has indicated the price will start from $3,150. So whether you are buying to homestay or you are buying to invest and you're thinking of putting a check down, you need to ask yourself one important question. Is $3,150 a safe entry price? Now most of the real estate agent or yourself will be comparing to a recent launches or comparable launches. But unfortunately or fortunately, the Robertson Opus is the only 999-year leasehold project to be launched in the CCR. That means, in other words, there's no way you can compare with a new launch project. But the other way is to compare with a resale project, which in my opinion will be the UE Square. Now the UE Square is directly opposite the Robertson Opus. Some information regarding UE Square. Now for land tenure, it's 929 years starting from 1953 and was completed in 1997. That means 28 years has been used up. It's a 495 units. So without going the unit mix, average transaction price for UE Square is around 2001. So we need to ask ourselves, if UE Square is to be launched as a new launch project today, how much will be UE Square? The formula will be 2001 divided by 929 minus 28, multiply back to 929, and you get the figure 2166. Some may be thinking, wow, 3150 versus 216, that means the Robertson Opus is more expensive? No, hold your gun first. We will conclude that later. But some information regarding UE Square. Now over the last 28 years, there's a total of 225 profitable transactions, with the highest at 2 million after holding on for 25 years. Not bad, right? 225 transactions. And of course, there's also 38 unprofitable transactions, with the highest around 1 million after holding on for 10 years. So we may be thinking, well, it still makes sense to hold on to a freehold project because the lease decay doesn't come in. The other way of comparing the Robertson Opus is to look at the intrinsic method. The other method that we can use to assess whether are we entering at the right price or safe price is to use the intrinsic value calculation. So what exactly is intrinsic value in real estate? Intrinsic values refers to the true underlying worth of a property based on its fundamental characteristics and potential, rather than just its current market price or speculative hype. Unlike market price, which fluctuates with supply, demand, sentimental and trends, intrinsic value consider first, location quality, second, rental income potential, third, operating costs and expenses, fourth, growth prospect, which include population, infrastructure, 5th, comparable property values. 6th, property condition and design. So why is intrinsic value important to you? Because first, it helps investor or buyer like you to assess whether a property is overpriced or undervalued. Second, it guides long-term investment decision based on cash flow and capital growth potential. And third, it reduces reliance on speculation or market buzz. So I'm going to share with you what are the intrinsic value for the Robertson Opus. The indicative selling price for one bedroom 495 square feet will be starting from 1.58 million. My calculation for the intrinsic value for this one bedroom is 1.584 million, which means if you buy below 1.584, you are buying undervalued. If you are buying above 1.584, you are buying an overpriced property. For the two bedroom of 689 square feet to 721 square feet, the indicative selling price from the developer is 2.17 million. My intrinsic value that I calculated is 2.178. Anything below 2.178, it will be underpriced value. Anything above 2.178, it will be overpriced. And lastly, the indicative selling price for 3-bedroom flexi from the developer is starting from 3.10 million. My calculation of the intrinsic value for this 3-bedroom flexi is 3.3898, which means if you are buying below 3.398 mil, you are buying undervalued, and if you are buying above 3.3898, you are buying overpriced property. So one thing to note before we conclude this chapter for intrinsic value calculation is intrinsic value doesn't take into account of two characteristics. It doesn't take into account of future transformation and rental income appreciation. The next topic that we're going to talk about is the rentability of the Robertson Opus. Now let's discuss the rentability of the Robertson Opus. In other words, is it easy to rent out the unit in the Robertson Opus? I believe this is something that all the investors will be thinking. So to answer this question, let's do a comparison of the Robertson Opus within a 500 meter radius. I'll be comparing the Robertson Opus with UE Square, the Aspen Heights, since they're within a 500 meter radius. Now from this table, I believe that you will see something interesting. For all the unit size breakdown, be it 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom or 4 bedroom, you realize that Robertson Opus size tend to be smaller as compared to the counterpart UE Square and Aspen Heights. Now let's look at UE Square 2 bedrooms. UE Square 2 bedrooms, the smallest is 936 square feet. And 936 square feet in UE Square is still bigger than a 3 bedroom plus flexi, which is 926 square feet. Now let's look at Aspen Heights 3 bedrooms plus study, which is 1570 to 1603 square feet. Now this size is still bigger than the 4 bedroom premium in the Robertson Opus, which is 1539. So today, assuming that you are a potential tenant and assuming all the unit types in Robertson Opus, UE Square, Aspen Heights are all asking the same price. I mean, let's assume. So if you are a potential tenant, where would you go and rent? Would you rent Robertson Opus, which is newer, a modern facade, or you rather go for UE Square and Aspen Heights, which is older, but they'll give you more spaces? Now I'll leave that to you to answer for yourself. But I believe that in regards to the unit size, I believe this will be a challenge for the Robertson Opus owner to rent out their unit. So next up, we're going to talk about the layout in the Robertson Opus. Next, let's look at the floor plan of the Robertson Opus. But before we proceed to look at the floor plan, would you be keen to know what are the stacks that we're recommending? So without further ado, this is the site plan of the Robertson Opus, and this is direction north. So this will be east, this will be south, this west. Let's look at the stacks that we're getting the romantic evening sun. They will be at block 07. So we'll be looking at stack 03, 04, 05, 06. At block 15, we'll be looking at stack 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39. So these are the stacks that will be getting the romantic evening sun. But one thing to note, it will be an angled romantic evening sun rather than the full facing west sun. So how about the inner facing stacks? They will be at block 07, starting from stack 02, 01, 08, 07. At block 09, we'll be looking at stack 09, stack 10. At block 11, we'll be looking at stack 15, 16, 17, 18. At block 13, we'll be looking at stack 22, 21, 28, 27. At block 15, we'll be looking at stack 32, 31, 30, 29, 42, 41, and 40. So these stacks that I mentioned, there's an inner facing, and I believe to a certain extent, you are able to wave at your neighbor. So the stacks that I'm recommending will be at block 09, stack 11, stack 12. Block 11, stack 19, 20, 13, 14. Block 13, stack 23, 24, 25, 26. So these are the stacks that are outward facing, and they'll be getting the morning sun and have full privacy. But I believe that it's better to get the morning sun rather than the evening sun. So next, let's look at the floor plan of these respective stacks that I'm recommending. Now let's look at the layout of those stacks that are recommended. Let's start with block 09, stack 11, and stack 12. Now this is the layout for stack 11 and stack 12. We are looking at a 3-bedroom premium type C1-P estimated strata area around 107 square meter, 1152 square feet. Now without going into the details of this floor plan, I will show you what are the selling points for this floor plan. There are mainly 5 of them. First, the enclosed kitchen. Second, the yard. Third, separate washroom. Fourth will be this flexi area that you can use as a study room or another sleeping room. Fifth will be the balcony. Now for those families that's a helper, I guess, or I presume, they might put a helper sleeping in this bomb shelter with this separate washroom for the helper. In addition, what the owner can do is to create a separate partition here with a door access. In this case, the owner can limit the access of the maid into the main area. Let's move on to the rest of the stacks. Let's move on to block 11, stack 19. Now this is the layout for block 11, stack 19. It's a 2-bedroom type B6, estimated strata area around 67 square meters, 721 square feet. Now this is the layout. It's quite a typical layout, and some of you might criticize the area or pinpoint this area as wastage, but in my opinion, this is the area that can put shoe racks over there. Now this is an open concept kitchen, which I'll propose that you partition here, and use glass partition, tempered glass. In this case, this become an open concept kitchen, but not forgetting you also have to create a door access. Now, an enclosed kitchen is always better than an open concept kitchen. 2 reasons. First is functionality, because with an enclosed kitchen, after cooking a meal, no matter how careful is the person cooking, there will always be grease. So if this is an enclosed kitchen, it's very easy to clean up this area. Second, with glass partition, it's aesthetically pleasing. It definitely looks better, and it appeals to a lot of people who love to cook. Last thing for this layout is the balcony. The rest are pretty standards. Now let's move on to the rest of the layout. Let's move on to block 11, stack 20, and stack 13. Now this is the layout for stack 13 and 20. It's a 2-bedroom layout. Type B5. Area, estimated area about 67 square meter, 721 square feet. Now similarly to the previous layout, this is the area that can put a shoe rack. Convert the open concept kitchen into an enclosed kitchen using tempered glass with a door access. Now the other selling point will be the balcony. The rest are pretty standards. Let's move on. Let's move on to block 11, stack 14. Now for stack 14, it's a 3-bedroom plus flexi, type C4-Ash. Estimated strata area around 35 square meter, 1023 square feet. Now this is the same area that you can build a shoe rack. Now the selling point, of course, will be the enclosed kitchen. 2, the balcony. 3, another separate balcony for the master bedroom. Now this is a very good selling point. And lastly, not forgetting the flexi area where you can have a study area or another small sleeping room. Let's move on to block 13. Let's start off with stack 23, and 26. Now this is a layout for stack 23 and 26. It's a 3-bedroom dual flex. When I look at this layout, it took me some time to realize that this is a layout for dual key. And in order for this layout to work, the prospective buyer or developer has to create. Now I'm not so sure whether the developer do it for the buyer, but this is how it works. So you have to create one partition over here and another partition over here. Now there'll be one door access into this area and a door access into this area. So this area will be the area for a studio, and this area will be the area for 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Now you ask for my opinion, I don't know how to appreciate this layout. A few reasons. One reason is currently when I'm making this video, there's a lot of 1-bedroom, 1+ study, there's a lot of 2-bedroom in the market that's up for rent, up for sale, and it's pretty challenging to lease them or to sell them. So if you are an investor, minimally I would suggest at least buy a 2-bedrooms with 2 bathrooms. And I think this layout, I don't think so you appeal to family. So let's move on. So lastly, let's look at block 13, stack 24 and 25. Now this is a layout for stack 24 and 25. It's a 2-bedroom layout, type B2. Area 64 square meter, 689 square feet. This is also called a dumbbell layout. I don't know why they call it a dumbbell layout, because both sides maybe can carry dumbbell. So the selling point for this style of layout is, one, it's very efficient, no wastage of space, there's no common corridor. The moment open door, you go into a living room. So there's also 2 master rooms. Why is that 2 master rooms? You can view one over here, the other one is here. Some people think, this is a common room. But if from the common room there's access into a Jack and Jill bathroom, would you agree that this can also be considered as a junior master? Of course, the other selling point will be the kitchen and the balcony. So with that, I finished the layout of those stacks that are recommended. And in the next section, I'll be concluding for the Robertson Opus, whether it's a hit or a miss. This is the last section where I'll be concluding for the Robertson Opus, whether it will be a hit or will be a miss. But before that, let's look at the master plan. Now this is master plan 2019, because 2025 master plan is still in the draft stage. So if you look at the Robertson Opus, which is here, the blue, because it's 348 units with 26 commercial place units, that's why it's marked blue. Now let's look at Google Earth so they can get a better picture. Now this shows the Robertson Walk, Fraser Place, which is en bloc. So this will be the new Robertson Opus. So if you look at the area, you realize that most of the land has been built. In other words, there's no visibility of transformation. But I could be wrong. But at this moment of time, I don't see it. Which means in the next 3 to 5 years, there won't be any upscale in capital appreciation or rental income. Next, we'll look at whether are there any good schools around the Robertson Opus. Within 1 click, there's this River Valley Primary School. Within 1 to 2, there's this 5 school, and of this 5 school, in my opinion, ACS Junior and St. Margaret School are good school. But in Singapore's education system, where there's a balloting, it is still boils down to distance, which mean. So if there's balloting, if ACS and St. Margaret is within the 0 to 1K, you'll be perfect. So lastly, for the Robertson Opus, this is my 2 cents worth of opinion. In terms of location, 2 thumbs up. It's in a very good location, called Central Region, District 09, Orchard and River Valley. You are minutes away from the main financial center at Shenton, and also minutes away to this Marina Bay Financial Center. Where food option is concerned, plenty of wining, plenty of dining option, no lack of it. Third, we talk about price. At 3150, starting from, I would say that the developer have priced it competitively. And it's the only 999 leasehold project that's going to be launched. Now, the only concern will be, of course, the intrinsic value. If you are buying below the intrinsic value that I've covered in the early chapter, congratulations, you are buying as an undervalued property. If you buy above the intrinsic value, then you will be an overpriced property. The major concern that I have will be the rentability of the Robertson Opus. As covered earlier, most of the units for the Robertson Opus are smaller, much smaller as compared to the counterpart at the UE Square and Aspen. This is one concern I really have, because if I'm a prospective tenant, will I sacrifice my place for a modern facade? I don't know. So lastly, for Robertson Opus, if you really like a buyer, you are buying the homestay, go ahead. Okay? I think it's a good area. But if you're an investor, think twice. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much and have a good day.